Hello, everyone. Today we're joined by Will Smith, the president and CEO of Knightsbridge Development Corporation. What an absolute pleasure. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And first off, I want to thank you for inviting me to be here today.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Not a problem at all. Thank you for coming on. How's the weather over there? How's business going?
It's a day like most days here. Today I'm in Toronto, in our Toronto office in Canada. So it's a little cold, but you know what? We don't get to pick the weather and we make the best of every day. So it's a great day.
Amazing, amazing. Perfect. Let's get into something a lot of people are perhaps looking to, learn more about is your background. So, Will, if you wouldn't mind just walking us through your background and your journey to getting to where you are now, the ups and downs, and perhaps a little bit about your role at the company, what that looks like.
My beginnings started within civil engineering. My undergraduate is in civil engineering. For those of you taking civil, I apologize because in year two I figured out I did not want to do that, and I started to look at what I could do with my education when I was done that would be different than just being an engineer sitting in an office. Real estate became the focus. I was very fortunate in that after graduating, I went to work for the New York City Port Authority, who take care of all the historic and city-owned buildings in New York. And it really provided me with my true education, if you will. Some amazing mentors, which also left me with a lasting impression of great leaders are the ones who take that role on. They are mentors, they remember what they received, and then they pay it forward, as well as looking back with appreciation. So, that first job, and I think it holds true for a lot of people, is key to your career. It really sets you in terms of how you view the world, what you want in terms of a company, the culture you're looking for. There's just so much we learn that you can never discount it. From there, I worked in the US for a number of years. I have a master's degree from Cornell in real estate. I've now since worked in corporate roles, initially in North America, the United Kingdom, the EU, and Asia.
Okay.
I look back on those, and what it taught me was there had to be something better than just corporate life. And that, at some point, more than just profits matter.
Yep.
Hence, I created about 15 years ago Knightsbridge Development Corporation as a boutique firm. I made a decision that no matter how much geographically we grew, we would still maintain a boutique status. I love the fact that I know everybody who works in the organization. We don't view them as employees. We refer to all of us as part of a work family.
Yep.
And that's really how we treat things. So I would never have been able to do that in a publicly traded environment. Not that they don't want to, but it's constricted by how the company's set up, how the company's run, and the governance model associated with it. So for me, one of the best things about starting the company is to watch all the people who are part of my work family grow in their careers, benefit from our marketing in terms of, they get to be part of it. We really believe strongly that our team are the ones who they deliver on what it is we commit to. So you've got to remember that, and you should never forget that as your career evolves and you move up. So now, as president and CEO, I have the great portion of being able to look at what we've built, but then plan for the future. And, we look at things, again, a little bit differently. One of the most exciting things we're looking forward to is we're starting to explore the concept of becoming an employee-owned company.
Right. Okay.
For us, we made a decision that we love what we have. We love the culture. We love, the brand. We're not going to get that if we were to sell 10 years, 20 years down the road to private equity. Really, what we wanted to do was allow the people who contributed to the success of this company to continue to operate, run, and be owners in it. So that's probably the most exciting thing right now. It's not really so much just the work, it's the future and what the future looks like.
Absolutely. I think there's very few companies that actually stand for more than just profit or perhaps just their balance sheets or just, submitting a return and making X. I think some companies like yourself, and I guess it's really founder led or, starts from the top, that actually value the people that are actually making the big contributions and actually responsible for the output and actually bringing them all together with them to the top rather than an exercise of numbers or employees and interchangeable assets, I guess. But it's amazing to see that's, I guess, the heart of your company.
Well, again, I really truly believe that that's exactly what it is. The difference between companies is not, the logo. It's not all of the glitz and publicity around projects. It's not the bragging status of what you work on. What you really create is measured by your people. Do they stay with the company? Do they grow with the company? Do you help them grow with the company?
Yeah.
And I think those are the measures of long-term success. Everybody can make money short term. You have to go through, I gotta say, tougher times when you have to go through periods where there may not be enough people for the amount of work, the opposite of tougher times.
Yeah.
The fact that we will all collectively work together as opposed to, well, that's not my problem, that's not my job. That's what you get back when you actually give something that is an attachment to the humanity of business as opposed to the economics.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. I guess, well, what does a typical day look like for you? I know it's probably meetings and phone calls and dealing with the team, probably even up and down the city and the country. But I guess if you run us through, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, first of all, I don't think there is a typical day for me, but one of the things that I've worked really hard to maintain is depending on the day. On one day, a typical thing is going to be every week I have a team meeting.
Okay.
And we take the time to go through everything that everyone's working on. We collectively share. We determine whether people need help. So on that day, it's more focused on the office, on the team, and on the work family. Other days, it could involve starting off at the airport because we do have offices both across Canada. We're in the UK. We out of the UK service the EU, and we also have an office in Latin America as well as Dubai.
Oh,
So
interesting.
if you look at it from that standpoint, my typical day could be in any one of those places, and often is in various ones of those places. But at this point, for me, most of my time actually goes into staff development, we'll call it, or in my case, team development. I spend a lot more of my time now, which I'm really happy about, looking at, as I said earlier, the future, but it's the future of the people who are here. So we have once a week, there's one-on-ones. Everyone in the company gets one with me for anywhere between a half hour and an hour. There's a secondary one-on-one that everyone gets with our COO, and it's more focused on the mentoring, skills development, career development. Where are you in the career path? That you still want to be, this in this location at this time 3 years from now, in this role 5 years from now? Because really, at that point, what we're trying to do is develop long-term employees that we can have as part of the succession plan, and that are just really happy to be here
Yeah,
and enjoy the environment. So you look at that part of it, that consumes a lot of my day. I still do the predominant portion of business development, so I do have a lot of meetings, but I try to temper them and spread them out across
yeah,
my various atypical days to make sure that I'm always in the office or one of our offices at some point throughout the day. Because for me, my being accessible to my team is hugely important, both for them, but also for me. So I know that they're in a good place.
absolutely. And I'll be honest, Will, when I speak to different people and people in different industries, that's not something I see is part of the culture and a part of actually, the day to day, embracing employee development and embracing their future and actually doing that as frequently as you do. Others treat it as a tick box exercise, and it shouldn't really be a tick box exercise. It should be something that's embraced because your employees and the work family, and that is the future of the company. And if you're not investing in that the same as you would invest in a big project or you'd invest in maybe a new office, then you don't have a very bright future, do you?
Not at all. The other side of it as well is, when you speak about tick boxes, ESG has become for many companies just that. It's something that you put in your annual report for investors, and
That's
look
it.
at me, I'm being nice to the planet and somewhat nice to people. For us, it's very different, and in fact, we speak to it in not so much just our ESG statement and our policies, but our tagline for our company is planet, people, projects. And when I talk about it, I add at the end in that order because
Wow.
really that's what we're looking at. So, for us, ESG is really important. Not just the elements that are tied to the physical world, or not just the elements that are tied to sustainability, but also those that are tied to creating good environments for people to work in. So we've developed incredibly strong policies around anti-bullying, around diversity and inclusion. And, I'm really happy to say that also not like very many of the other companies that we deal with or that you may have spoken to.
Yeah.
We have a 50% to 50% ratio of men to women in our company. 2/3 of our C-suite is female. Take a look at that. We have probably one of the most diverse teams in terms of background, points of original origin, etc. And with that, one of the things that I truly believe in, and I share it with a lot of people, is really it's our differences that make us stronger. Instead of fighting that whole fact that we're not all the same, we should be really happy about that because we have the opportunity to learn from the world.
Absolutely. Very well said, bro. Very well said. So I guess that takes us very nicely on to the next topic I want to get your thoughts on, and that's industry trends. Lots of things going on at the minute, across different industries. But if we talk specific to you and what you're seeing, what are some major trends and shifts in the industry at this moment in time, or where do you see it heading?
It's an interesting time because if I look at in terms of the trends, and these will be trends that I see at a higher level, maybe as opposed to just instead of selling widget A, we sell widget B. If you're a manufacturer, I look at it from the standpoint of in our industry, we have tightening margins. We have decreased demand, market fluctuations. We're in a cycle that's very similar to both 1970s and again in the 1990s. I think, we're at a point where we really need to look back on those periods and take the lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work. Because a big issue that kind of haunts us, I think, more than anything, is addressing this issue of attainable housing. If we want to continue to attract the best and brightest minds, they have to have somewhere to live. And if we want to continue to have societies where everyone is important, that means we need housing that's available for everyone, not just for a certain percentage of our population. And we can't forget or turn our back on things. I often say to people when they're not as receptive perhaps to attainable housing, okay, let's play this your way. We go down the road. Who do you think is going to serve you your tea in the morning? Who do you think is going to be there at the shop to take your money when you want to buy something? Not everybody sits in a C-suite office making exceptionally good money.
Absolutely.
And I often use the trends around the UK because everyone always thinks that everywhere they go is when you're on vacation. So people from outside of the UK, they go to London and it's like it's wonderful, it's glamorous, there's the theater, everybody's like out doing shopping, etc. What they don't realize is that the United Kingdom has a huge degree of child poverty. A vast majority of people's wages go to just covering housing.
Yeah, basics.
And very little left for anything after that. So, it's easy to get lost in it all and it's easy to not really see it. But I think if we want to turn these trends and create a more sustainable economic situation, it starts with housing that's available for everyone. I think that's the one thing that many people miss. So it's probably not a trend or a way of looking at things that maybe is popular with everyone. But I think, from our side of things, it's really important. I'll say it comes up a fair bit in conversation with clients and, in some cases with my peers, but it ends with conversation. We actually need an action plan driven by both industry and government. It's not going to work from one or the other.
Absolutely. And well, how has the increasing emphasis on sustainability and green, building impacts and practices actually affected your business operations and perhaps even strategy for the foreseeable future? Has that made a dent, or is it something that's already included within the ground up?
It's basically in the DNA of the company. We build sustainability into all of our development sites themselves, as well as our buildings. We promote very much so with our clients the importance of it. I did get smarter over the years. I've learned to not try to put forward sustainability as it's something we really should do, and you should do it because you want to do it. Now I've taken the approach of I show them what the impact is on their ROI. So less lease turnovers, less operating costs. So you start to speak their language, if you will.
Numbers don't lie.
Sustainability makes sense, and you get to be a decent human being for free.
Absolutely. Yeah. As they say, numbers don't lie.
No, exactly. And we think it actually it benefits our business, but that's not why we do it.
Yeah.
We've always been proponents of it. I think we now have something like, I'm gonna say 12 lead platinum buildings that we've been involved with. Actually, it's probably more than that because we have 7 lead platinums from last year alone. But, you know, for me, the lead isn't the big part of it, it's what the impact is. So, lead's a nice plaque on the building, it makes you feel good. But, there's things you can do beyond that, and there's things that you should do beyond that that are more important. Really, it's about what makes a difference long term. So, for example, we're starting to look at, and we're really big drivers on the well standard, which is dealing with basically how the building works with people. What's that building like? Indoor air quality, all the way down to things like do you provide healthy food options in the building? We on one of our projects for an office building recently, we received well platinum status as well as wire scored platinum status. Strangely enough, they're tied together because we created a situation where you could walk outside the building anywhere on the grounds, which are quite big. We have all kinds of seating options available, connectivity to nature, but you can actually turn on your laptop and get Wi-Fi everywhere. And it was big for us because it meant if you just needed to get out of the building, but you had something to do, you could do both. And you could get outside. Because one thing we are, very strong on is having that connectivity to nature as part of development, because it has long-term impacts, not just on how people feel, but actually on mental health and general health in its broadest terms, because people can get out and walk around and see something other than concrete.
Well said, well said, well said. Now, well, a big trend I'm sure you're seeing as well, and it's blown up in a recent number of years, is social media. The power of social media is untapped, and I'm not even sure we're halfway through its potential. How big of an impact does social media make on what you do, and how do you think social media could potentially drive your business forward to achieving its goals?
We actually started using social media in a unique way because I made it a challenge that for 2025, I wanted to see a lot less of my face. So I didn't want to be the focus of the company. I didn't want me to be the poster child for the company.
Yeah.
So we've used social media and video in a series of like very short clip interviews with our team members.
Oh,
So
amazing.
we're starting to use it where they get to speak about something they're passionate about. A lot of them it is sustainability. We've had so far, people from the finance group, the project executions group, that ability to give them some face time. I think it's important for them because it drives home the point again that the company isn't me. The company is all of these people. So it gives them recognition and it gives them a little bit more stature in the industry community. I think it's particularly great when they talk about their projects because without being coached, they all put a little plug in for our client. It's not one of those get up on a soapbox and talk about us things. The other thing that we're using social media for, which is totally not related to any type of marketing, is we're using it as a sounding board for us to issue pieces, whether they be video pieces, whether they be slide decks, written pieces, basically just on the hot topics of sustainability. So a lot of articles on carbon reduction, alternative energy form, the ability to use, for example, precast structural elements, which has a huge impact on reducing carbon. So we're using it to also generate interest in our industry. So hopefully we want to attract more people into it. To educate people about how much the industry is trying to do, because unfortunately, the built environment is the largest contributor to carbon footprint. If you take a look at concrete alone and the impact it has. So, we've run articles on alternative measures to concrete or alternative measures to reinforcing steel. So I think there's a huge opportunity for social media to become what the internet was intended for, which is an education outlet. So I challenge others to think of it the same way. I have this rule that, we can't say anything about ourselves until we've said 7 things that have nothing to do with us. So that's basically how we run our ratio. And it's because I want people to be forced to think as opposed to entertained.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And a big trend at the minute, and I'm sure it's, you're seeing it perhaps on your side and it's taken a massive leap in the last few years, is definitely technology. ever-changing technology, new technology. There's a big trend at the minute with AI, automations and systems. Is that something that you're already implementing and you're benefiting from? Or is that something you're currently looking at implementing and actually taking advantage of? Where are you at within that trend and
We're huge proponents of the use of technology, especially when it comes into play with increasing efficiencies, reducing the work stream process. So we use technology in terms of a platform where if we're on a construction site, we're live and we're connected to our systems. Through our portal, we can mark up photographs and input them into drawings that are sitting in the file. We could basically take everything we used to have to do when we would come back from visiting a site and have it already done. And what's better, we can publish it live from the site. So I think these are the things that are making a difference in terms of workflow. With AI, I'm going to say we're at the beginnings of that. And I think that it's a matter of determining where AI fits within your organization. I will say probably the worst use of AI is people who use it to write their piece or their work. One of the reasons I say that is I always know when it's AI generated because it lacks all emotion.
yeah,
Whereas, when someone writes, there's some degree of passion to it. So you can't think of it as a cheater toy. You have to think of it as a tool. So how are you going to use that tool and what's that tool going to do? And I think that's what we're going to start to see in the next, I'm going to say 2 to 5 years.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. So are there components that you've already started to implement within the business to improve processes, improve operations, or is that something perhaps in the next few years you're sort of keeping an eye out on how the industry shifts and perhaps something in the future?
No, we've actually managed to take through technology the workings of, I'm going to say 4 to 5 software programs and incorporate them all into one like enterprise-based system. So for example, as I was describing, you're on site, you can embed photos into the drawings. Well, you can also run all of your schedules, create all your schedules, track all your logs, all your risks in one place. Best part of all, we have a client portal where they can plug into that. And at any time live, they can take a look and see what the status of their project is. How many RFIs are outstanding? Where's the risk matrix? Are there any hot items that have to be addressed? So think of the old school method of it, and we still do it. It's kind of belt and suspenders approach. We still generate an actual weekly report and a monthly report to all our clients, but this allows them on any given day to go in and say, where am I on my budget? Where am I on my schedule? Are there any issues that I've forgotten that I'm supposed to be answering back to Knightsbridge? Is there things Knightsbridge owes me? And I think what it does is it makes us better, all of us, in terms of the total project team, which is the owner, consultants, ourselves, everyone. Communication is the key. So by making us better communicators, by making us aware of the fact that at any time anyone can look over your shoulder a little bit, I think it just makes us better at what we do. And I think that's where technology is really helping.
Amazing. That's great. That's great. What is something that's working really well for you within the business? Some positives, and what are some areas that perhaps you think are some bottlenecks and some areas that you think are keeping you from achieving the next level of growth?
I think the one thing that works really well for us in business, and it's proven so by the fact that, continually year to year, we increase our revenues. It's the fact that by treating our clients differently, by viewing them as a part of the system, as part of the process, and by treating them in the same way you would treat any relationship, what we're finding is that combined with full transparency. So example, being able to log on at any time and see all the statistics. What it's doing is it's creating a greater and greater sense of trust, and it's creating, in many ways, a sense of community. So for us, that's worked exceptionally well. And it's not that that was the plan. The plan was this was the right thing to do. So, I think, the takeaway from that is if you always act in a way that is in the best interest of everyone involved, not just one person, there's going to be a huge benefit. The other side of it is we do at the end of every project, we do a post-mortem, but we also do a little bit of a 360 interview with the client. How did we do? What could we have done better? Are there things that you think we need to look at for the future, trends that are changing? We're creating a massive database by doing that but we're also able to practice continuous improvement. And I think, that's the one thing that we all have to be aware of is, there's a phrase, it's evolution or extinction.
Yeah.
And our business is changing. Like it has become far more high tech. You take a look at things like BIM modeling, where we do 3D studies for clash detection between mechanical, electrical, and structural. That used to be called, the guy phoned you up and said, by the way, the pipe is in the way of this beam. Now we look at it before we ever build and go,
Yeah.
okay, guys, we got to move this pipe. So I think that embracing of technology as well has been fundamental to our growth. And I think it's going to continue for the successful and proactive companies to continue to be successful moving forward. Because I think, again, it will be the difference between companies that are around 10 years from now and the rest.
Absolutely. And now, I guess on the flip side, what's been frustrating? What are some things and some areas do you think that's actually holding the company back? And what are some changes in the foreseeable that you think, right, these need to be made because they're either holding us back or preventing us from actually reaching the next level?
I think our biggest challenge, like a lot of companies, is for growth, you need people. So it's the attraction of highly skilled talent. And that's what people forget is that this is actually a highly skilled industry. It's not like construction. People used to think it's a guy breaking up a wall with a hammer.
And it's
So you look at it from that standpoint, that whole attraction retention piece, that's actually the biggest challenge in the industry as a whole. What we've done to try and mitigate it is we are big believers in growing our own. So basically what that means is when we hire people, it's based on, okay, they can do the job we're hiring for them. Where would they be in 3 years? Where would they be in 5 years? And we start to talk to them and we develop that career path. And I think by investing in the people, and we do it through ongoing continuous education. We every year set aside money for people to take courses, to upskill, all kinds of things. We are doing a fair amount this year with people who haven't got their PMP to help them get there. And it's one of those things where we pay for it. It's not like we'll pay half. We literally will invest in our people. And I think by investing in them, by treating them with a great deal of respect, and also just, I guess, remembering that they're the part of us that makes us successful, we are making a difference. So that's how we got around the fact that there's, I say, a limited amount of choice, because the one thing, and I referenced a couple of economic cycles, and then a huge portion of our industry, whether it's consultants, contractors, people like ourselves, consultants, people left the industry. There was no work for a decade. So they had to do something. So they left, they went and sold mutual funds, sold cars, whatever they had to do to make their mortgage payments. Well, those people never came back. So now time moves on, and that group of individuals who would currently be directors or vice presidents doesn't exist. So if you weren't actively working to develop those people from within, where would you find them?
Absolutely. Perfect. And now, I guess, to wrap up, we're coming to the end. What are some future goals? I'm sure setting goals and having big visions for the company is part of your day to day. What does it look like in the next 6 to 12 months for yourself and the company? Is it, for example, more focus on social media and getting yourself out there more, being seen? Is it improving processes and retaining better talent? Or is it actually becoming, one of the best at what you do across the world? What is the next 6 to 12 months look like for yourself?
So I think actually becoming best in class is all of those things. And that's really what we look at. We look at two sides of the business. There's the business itself and there's the business we do. So if I look at the business we do, first of all, one of our big things as we look forward for growth and goals for the next, let's call it the year 2025. We're looking to maintain those long-term clients and those relationships. We're focusing on strategic growth in our existing markets, and I'm going to say it's based on being cautiously optimistic. So, we're not doing anything crazy. We're kind of doing our usual business model. So nothing really changing there. That's kind of just part of what's always worked for growth. When I look at the working on the business, it's continuing to develop our people, continuing to develop our systems and our processes with the goal of being able to deliver better, faster reporting, and I'm going to say better records at the end of our projects, because we turn those over to our clients in terms of as-bills, but also all of the financial and economic modeling, etc. We have now gotten to a point where I would say we're probably a 99% paperless office. So, that I think is a testament to the fact that we've made those changes. So now it's using those changes to make it better for our clients.
Amazing, amazing. And what's one of your biggest pieces of advice that I guess you wish you knew at the beginning of your journey, or someone perhaps at the beginning of theirs really needs to hear?
I think the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to take risks, but make sure they're calculated risks. Don't be foolish, but you've got to be bold, because if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. And that's really the way you have to look at it. I would say make information-based decisions that are current and relevant to your business. You can't think about the business in the same way 2 years ago and today. We're at a point now where within 6 months we changed practices in terms of best practices, because to your point earlier, technologically we're changing so quickly. And I would say when you're looking for opportunities, start off where other people see problems. There's that whole aspect of, from adversity comes reward. And it's just about how you do it. And I guess lastly, it's tied to both clients and people in general. Treat your clients with respect. Never take them for granted. Make them part of your team. Cherish the relationship. And then to apply that to your people within your organization, you got to share your success with your people. They're the ones who deliver on your commitments as a business owner. And they're actually the people that all of your clients, no matter what business you're in, that's who they know. They may see an owner once a year. They see those people every day. So give them the tools they need and share the successes with them in terms of acknowledge that they are part of that success and the leader of it. And if you follow those principles, I think that, for the long term, you're going to do well in business. And there's always going to be a curveball here and there. But at the end of the day, I think that would take you very
amazing. Keep swinging and eventually you'll hit a home run.
Exactly.
Well, I'm absolutely blown away. It's been such an amazing conversation. You've been amazing. I'm sure a lot of people are really going to value your insights. So thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Is there any final comments you have before we do, I guess, wrap up?
No, I guess I just close it up with, I think what you're doing is amazing, because I think the more we share, the better we are overall. And I think, there's an element within, I'm going to say, people who get to a leadership role in any organization, and it doesn't have to be a CEO, because I always tell people, being a boss doesn't make you a leader, and you don't need to be a boss to be a leader, right? It's how you show up every day. But I do think that the more we share collectively as a group, used to be, knowledge is power, so don't share anything. Now, I think there's more and more enlightened individuals who are saying, if we want our overall industry to grow and to continue to develop, then maybe we should be sharing, because we share what works and what doesn't. So that's my challenge to maybe people listening to this or other people you interview, is embrace that and run with it.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And I guess we'll catch you all next time.